So I was recently directing a short film project, and being on set again reminded me of a few key things that I think will help any director, especially at the low budget level, the indie level, the student film project, 48-hour project. I think it applies at any level, but certainly when you're, a very wealthy DGA director, you can be a jerk, I guess, and have people cater to you. But I have a no asshole policy on my set, and that includes me. So I think that, again, most of the stuff is more geared to the indie level because you're not able to pay people their worth, and there's a more collaborative spirit. And so but the kind of no jerk policy applies to rule number one, which is when you are crewing and putting people together for your project, you don't want to have to drag somebody to your project. You don't want to have them be grumpy and grouchy and like complaining about the fact that they're getting shit pay, like at the indie level, unfortunately, we just can't pay people their worth again. But that doesn't mean that their work doesn't have value, and I think there are different ways to accommodate for that. There's been a lot of discussion with the whole obsessions production designer thing, complaint. But I think that when you think about bringing people on board, they have to be as enthusiastic as you are about the project and about what they're going to do with the project or for the project or together. And again, I think that's where that collaborative spirit can really help get people to be enthusiastic in coming on board. So if you think about enthusiastic consent, like that applies to who you want to be on your team to make your project. So that's, I think, kind of the first step, is that you want to work with people who are really excited and behind the project. Then you really want to plan your schedule somewhat on the conservative side. Yes, we all want to be ambitious and we want to get all these crazy shots, but if you're not realistic, and if you don't have somebody, like if you don't know any better, if you don't have a production manager, an AD, a producer, somebody telling you 70 shots is not, camera setups is not possible for your shot list on day one, um, then then you're going to set yourself up for disappointment, and you're also going to burn out your crew and they're going to be disappointed. And while we all want to make a great project that's going to change the world or, wow people and all this stuff, if you want to have a career, it's not about that one project. I mean, yes, that one project, if it does well, will help you get to the next project. But what will also help you get to the next project is crew that want to work with you again, because they'll work with you even if you don't necessarily get a huge next project. They just like working with you. And so when you plan a little bit more conservatively in your shot list and your production list, or and that doesn't mean that, again, you can't do something crazy or ambitious, but you make sure that that's kind of like the focus of the day and not the first half of the day, and then you're going to try and cram in all this other stuff. You've got to be very mindful of the pace of production, and that will help you manage your expectations as a director, because I've certainly felt, and I know other people have felt this as well, where especially as a director, you're sitting around waiting for people to set stuff up. It's not in your lane to set up a light or move the camera or grab a lens, and again, it depends on the scale of your project. But a lot of times I'm just sitting around waiting for people to get stuff set up, and that can be very frustrating. But it's more frustrating when I have an unrealistic sense of how fast things should get done. So, managing your expectations can help you stay calm, can help you stay engaged and excited and happy about your project, and that will trickle down to your crew. And then knowing your crew. I mean, it's great to be able to work with crew that you've worked with before, and there's something magical about working with people who can read your mind, and who you know what to expect from them, and you also know what their abilities are and kind of where to push and where I can't really ask for that because that's a little too much. Or knowing again from the size of your crew, there's always these trade-offs. If you have a small amount of crew and a ton of production gear, you're going to lose time just daisy chaining all that stuff onto set. Whereas if you have a huge crew, sure, you've got more people to move that stuff around and that can go quicker, but then you just have more people kind of on set and moving around, and that can actually slow things down. And so there are always trade-offs, and sometimes you have to think about what can you compromise. It's the same thing like when you're running out of hours in your day and your AD says, okay, you've got 5 setups for this scene and we can only do 2. Which 2 do you want to do? Or can you consolidate in a way that gets us done in the time that we have allotted? Or do we need a second day? Or, things like that. And so compromise is not necessarily a dirty word. All of these limitations or things that force you to kind of make these choices only forces you to understand your project better and make more informed decisions. And when you go into that prepared, you're able to make those decisions on the fly and pivot quickly in the moment. And so, it's great if you can work with people that you've already worked with before, but if you can't, then obviously professional crew, because they've been doing this for a while, will be able to anticipate and understand and kind of know how to set stuff up because they'll have experience and they'll come in with their own ideas. But professional crew, depending on who they are or what their style is like, they might not be the right choice. They might be perfectionists and take 2 hours on a small lighting tweak because it's not quite perfect, And sometimes you don't know that until you're on set or working with people, but that's where having these conversations in pre-production before you pick your crew can be really important, because I've seen non-professional or semi-professional people be really scrappy and fast, and I've also seen them be very slow because they just don't know what it is they're supposed to do and they don't want to do it wrong, and so it's all a trade-off, which is why I always remind people to keep in mind the project management triangle, where you have 3 choices in every project. It can be good, it can be fast, it can be cheap, and you can only pick 2 out of those 3. You cannot pick all 3. We cannot have it good and fast and cheap. You can only have it good and fast, or good and cheap, or fast and good. So then it's not going to be cheap, or fast and cheap, and then it's not going to be good. So there are always going to be trade-offs. And if you go into that accepting that reality, you will set yourself up for success. You will set yourself up to have a good experience, for your crew to have a good experience, and you will want to do it again. It creates a sustainable aspect to your ethos as a filmmaker, and that will help you in the next one and the next one and the next one to build that career.